calling all misfits, rebels, leaders, and teachers, welcome to the one place where the only way to fit in is by standing out, where big goals are met with even bigger action, and where we talk through, then tackle all things entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Kelsey Knudsen, and this is the Get Shit Done podcast. Welcome to the Rebelution. All right, Get Shit Done family. I'm excited for today's conversation because we are back in the hot seat, and I have something super special for you. You know, it's hard to find product-based people who want to come on and sit in the hot seat and talk business. And I'm joined by two amazing founders of Good Grief. We connected via the internet, which I love. And I'm just really excited to dig into their business a little bit today and talk through arguably something they're facing in business, but I know many entrepreneurs who are facing similar things. So I'm just going to get out of the way and let them intro themselves and their business. So give me just a brief overview of who you are and the origin of how Good Grief got started, then tell us a little bit more about where it's at present day.
Yeah, that sounds good. My name is Kristen Mortensen. Melissa and I are actually sisters. We started Good Grief in the throes of a lockdown during COVID while everyone was at home, baking bread, unable to leave their house. Melissa and I started talking about how the world needs a better place where we can just, connect with people, support people that are going through difficult times. Everyone's really good at celebrating birthdays and anniversaries and all the exciting events in life. But during the events where we really, really need someone, where, we're really struggling, whether that's a cancer diagnosis or having a miscarriage or struggling with infertility, those are the moments that we really need people. And so Melissa and I got talking, and it just started off more as an idea from Melissa, so she can share a little bit more on that. And now we're 4 years in. So we are selling care packages for life's twists and turns.
Yeah, I've gone through autoimmune diagnosis, infertility, miscarriage. And so all of those experiences led me to want to do something. So that's kind of where it started. And I think Kristen did a good job of explaining that. Just wanted to find a way for people to connect in those times. So yeah, like Kristen mentioned, we're 4 years in. We are running everything out of my garage still. We're based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And, our top line sales are great. We're in the six figures, but we're trying to figure out how to scale, how to have our business start paying us. So that's where we're at right now.
And how big is your team size? How many people are involved, whether it's contractors or W-2s?
We have 2 contract workers that are mostly just helping pack boxes. So we're very much still in the business. I do all of the inventory, fulfillment, process, and then Kristen does all the marketing.
I'm glad you're on the show. I'm glad you're sharing vulnerably this stage of business that is humbling and we all go through. And also there's something to be said about wearing all the hats. We were talking about it before we were recording. There is a season in business where you kind of have to. That's just the reality. And I also think that that process is really valuable because as you grow and scale your team, you're very clear on everything that impacts the business. So that way, if someone's doing a great job and if someone's not quite a fit. So kudos to you guys for putting in the hard work and building it truly from the ground up. But now it's a pivotal time. And I think that now is a great time to have a conversation of how do we set things up in a way that's going to support those next steps in business. I like to reverse engineer. That's just kind of how my brain works. So I'd like to start, if you were to wave a wand, 5-10 years from now, where would both of you like to see the business? Like in a dream world, things are working out well. What's that look like 10 years from today?
10 years. Okay, that's a long ways out. But I think we have an actual warehouse space. We have employees that are doing various things, fulfillment, inventory management, I don't know, some content creation. I don't know other. I'm sure there's maybe some more employees in there. We are getting a paycheck. Kristen and I are both living in the same spot because right now we live in different places and that has its challenges, but we're making it work. I also envision some more in-person community networking support that we can do once we have a physical space. So I think that is a goal.
The number one thing is having a warehouse. Poor Melissa's garage is the warehouse at the moment. Much to her family's dismay, it is just packed full of our products, hundreds and hundreds of products. So I think number one thing is a big warehouse space. Just more, I think I would like to be in the same place as Melissa, where I don't even live on the same continent as her. So that's also a challenge. And running the marketing, for me, it's a bit difficult just not being there in front of the products. Having a content team that's there. I think just for Melissa and I, just not in the weeds so much. I know, Kelsey, you just mentioned just wearing all the hats. But, we were dumped in the deep end, figuring out trademarks and filing that ourselves, only to get it declined and denied. And so having to consult with a lawyer, just all these different things that you don't think about when you start a business. And then you learn real quickly all the things that you did wrong. We didn't file our first taxes. So all these little things where you start to learn. I think as time goes on, Melissa and I can hopefully take a step back and we can have a team that runs all that.
So we know where we want to go. I know a couple things about the business and behind the scenes what's going on. I think if we were to summarize it into one little phrase, it's how to set the business up to support scaling. And I think that starts with, where do both of you want to go long-term in your roles and relationship with the business? What are your best skill sets? What are the things you're really good at and you enjoy doing? Those two things to me have to be in alignment, which will then start to give some clarity of, okay, what gaps do we need to fill either within the team, like hiring, or within some automations and processes that help support that. Do you guys have clear SOPs of what each of you do? Is it really kind of laid out all the different responsibilities and processes that happen for the fulfillment side or for your marketing side, or is it still kind of just living up here in your mind?
Melissa is really good at the SOPs, so she's got all of her bits down. It does help that we bring in completely different skill sets. So my background is marketing and like e-commerce. And then Melissa's, she's a buyer, merchandiser. We really do complement each other with our backgrounds. And then we've hired people where we are not that strong, as in, for instance, our QuickBooks, we have a bookkeeper. And neither of us are strong in the finances.
I would say at the beginning, we really talked about that more when we first launched, like what we're going to do. And then like naturally things have kind of been like, oh, I do this part on the website. Kristen does this part. It's kind of just a natural break of duty, having good communication and knowing like, okay, this part of my job is done now. You're taking it and finishing this part.
I think there's a point in necessity where it's like, okay, this needs to get done. It's you or me who's doing it. And then I think that next level of scaling is, okay, no, but here's what we each do best individually. And we're going to acknowledge that maybe Melissa owns this for today, but that's not like a forever thing. So let's be really mindful of what would it look like to replace that role? What would it look like to hand that off to someone else? What would it look like to make sure that's documented and in a process to where if we onboarded someone tomorrow, if a unicorn dropped from the sky, wanted to work with us and was a great fit, how could we hand that off to that person? So that transference of knowledge is key. And a lot of people think you have to wait till you hire that person to do that process. And I'm just a huge fan of document it and get it as clean and automated now. So that way you're just ready when that person comes along. The other side of the house, what would have to change to get you guys to a point where you're able to pay yourselves more? So let's talk a little bit about that. Is it a sales issue, meaning more money needs to come in the door consistently to support that? Or is there some kind of cost and confusion about what is happening with the money you guys do have in the business?
This is a good question. So this is the best comparison I could think of. Last year, we made relatively the same exact gross revenue as the year before.
Okay.
However, our profits were double.
Okay.
So that's good. We went through our P&L just to see like where that was at. And most of it came down to marketing. Our return on ad spend for Google Ads was in a better position last year than it was the year before. But looking at that, I do feel like we just need better margins across everything. Shipping supplies are going up. God knows what's going to happen with all the tariffs. So some things are out of our control. There's a lot of different factors that contribute to that like bottom line number.
Melissa, how about you? What are your thoughts?
I would say that I think lots of it's just, I don't know, it seems like a scaling. Like, I think we have pretty dialed in expenses. Like, again, like our overhead's fairly low. Like, we don't have a space yet. It's been like just over a year that we've had contract workers and they're not full time by any means, but we've been able to sustain that. We're not spending like outrageous amounts of money on things. I don't know a lot of other people that have product-based businesses, so it's like hard to know. Is it just you have to make so much money in order to have enough extra? I'm not sure. That's the $1 million question.
Quite literally $1 million question.
Yeah, seriously.
I ask it because I think that if you can't separate out the two, and I'm glad, the proof is in the pudding, if your revenue was the same, but your profit doubled, that tells me that you have that awareness to dig into the numbers and look into, let's make sure we're being as efficient as possible in-house. So that answers that question. You also bring up something, which is the honest truth about having a product-based business. I work a lot with service-based businesses, but I do have some product people too. And it's just some pricing things are out of your control. Then my next question is, how often are you auditing the cost of the goods that you're including in your products and adjusting your pricing? How are you guys coming to your pricing?
Industry standards, like at least a 2-time markup from wholesale to retail. And then anytime one of our vendors raises prices, we're also doing that on our end.
Okay.
So like that's when that auditing happens. I guess our boxes, some of that, like, because we're like a gift company, so we're like packing it and like making things look nice. So that's built into our margin a bit. The thing that is not built into our margin is labor. So
Melissa's reading my head. So then my next question was, have you timed or are you aware of how long it takes top to bottom when someone clicks buy to when it lands at their doorstep, all the hands who are touching it, which also is marketing as well, and the amount of time it takes and the difference between whether Melissa's packaging or whoever else on the team or husband's coming in, God bless, and volunteering for a minute, like whatever that looks like. Have you timed how much cost is going into it from that perspective?
yes and no. I was tracking my time before we had contractors and I could pack a box like 15, 20 minutes. We haven't done that with our contractors. I've been thinking about that. I think I was listening to our podcast about having KPIs for like different team members, looking at our contractors, how long is it averaging for them to pack a box, looking at that and like, how do we get them to increase it without losing, quality control and like having issues with not getting the right things in there, things like that. So I think that's definitely a place we can look at.
And that's why I'm asking these questions for both you guys listening and you guys sitting here right in front of me digitally, because
Yes.
the truth is sometimes the answers are within the business. Sometimes it's not like, okay, let's just crank up the ad spend. And sometimes it's a combination of things. It's important to pause and really assess all these little areas. And I think time is sneaky. Time is super sneaky. And it depends how much you pay them. It depends, what is good? What is good enough? Like, are people doing it to the standard that you want? Or are they packing it and you're like going back and making a little adjustments and refolding it and that kind of stuff too? So that can be a really, really sneaky culprit. And as a CEO, if your time is spent micromanaging it or checking in on that, preventing you from focusing on the other areas to actually grow and scale the business, which is kind of where I'm going next with both of you, really being mindful of how do we get more business in the door and where does your time and energy go to like really fuel that part of the business. If we don't have that awareness, it just adds up so quick. I mean, Kristen, you'll know because you come from the marketing world. I was doing some research at the end of the year, and it's, I think, 23 minutes to re-engage your brain. If you're focusing on a task, then you go to scroll on Instagram or something, the average person takes about 23 minutes to like refocus on the task that you had at hand. And when you're a CEO and a mom and you have all the things going on, your time is so limited. And as a CEO, you just have to be laser focused on where your time is spent. And sometimes that feels counterintuitive because it means focusing more on the vision of the business and the big picture and sales and networking. And that doesn't feel like work. And then your contractors over here cranking out boxes, and there can be some kind of comparison or guilt even for CEOs who are in that season. So I'm curious if that's something either of you have kind of navigated. Kristen, I wonder if you being abroad may kind of solve for some of that, but I'm just curious if that's something either of you have faced when it comes to just deciding where to put your time in the business.
I constantly face guilt from, being away from the business. But, I have lived here for over a decade. I was here before Good Grief started. Guilt from just being away from my family, I guess, too. But yeah, I think the main thing is I just recently stepped out of my career in the corporate world in February. I'm now giving Good Grief the marketing it deserves, which is great to finally do. But it's funny you say that because, for instance, social media, because I have been really wishy-washy with it in the past, we have no engagement on it. Our followers don't engage with it. And I'm so busy like working in Google Ads and stuff because that's where we're getting a return on ad spend. You can see the money coming. I barely have time to do it. And I look at it and I'm like, is this even worth my time? The buying intent for us is like people are buying for someone else. They know someone whose dog just died. They are, on Google searching for a care package, searching for something to buy. To do ads on Instagram or stuff like that, people are scrolling looking for care packages. You know what I mean? They're not shopping for themselves. So I think it's like one level of disconnect. I'm answering your question in a roundabout way and going off on a tangent, but it's definitely a lot of guilt of just like trying to figure out where to put your time, your money, because time is really money.
Totally. And marketing, I mean, that's a big beast to take on for one person. As you know, they have specialists in all these different parts of marketing for a reason. And so if you're wearing all those hats, yeah, I'm a big fan of what is working. How do we just double, triple down on that? And then maybe have like a level of just awareness on those other platforms that we can pick up as we have more time and capacity to do it. So I don't think your approach with that is wrong, but it is a struggle.
I feel guilty because everyone on there on Instagram, like, this is me today. And I'm like, I don't have the brain capacity for that right now to get on every day and talk to our audience, especially when that's like an audience that's not really engaged. And then building up that engagement on social media, it's tough to do and it requires lots of time.
And a different strategy than what you're doing on Google, to your point too. So.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's. I'm like diagnosing here. I don't think that. I don't think that's the culprit. But I actually, Melissa, I'm curious what your answer is. Then I actually have a follow-up question kind of about this stuff.
I think it's constantly like I'm constantly thinking about like, okay, am I working in the business or on the business? And like kind of keeping like a mental checklist of the things I'm doing in the business. And like, how do I start delegating these to someone else? Like we handle all the customer service stuff, which is like a lot sometimes. And we haven't really been able to pass that piece on. I started passing a little bit on for like inventory management to one of our contract workers, but it's tricky. It's like, I mean, training people takes a lot of time too. Even if you have the SOPs, and I'm working part-time, I'm not in the same space always. And so I think that will be also a difference once we move to a warehouse. Like I will be working remote on my day job, but I'll be right there next to our contractor to like answer questions and step through things as needed. It's tricky to like kind of find that balance. And it's interesting because I think around this time last year, I was like ready to throw in the towel. I was packing all the boxes. Like I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the garage, packing my boxes before my kid wakes up, before I have to get ready, switch to mama, go to school. I gave Kristen an ultimatum. I was like, you have to move here and help me or we're stopping. That didn't happen. She's not moving here yet. But the difference was like hiring a contract worker. And like that made all the difference to be able to sustain my time and mental health and like keep things going.
I think a good exercise that would be valuable would be to look at how long it takes to pack orders. And if you haven't already done this, the hours that the contractors are working, how long it takes each of them to pack, to do the math of how much demand could the business support. Do you have that kind of rough number?
No.
Okay.
We doubt.
And here's why. Because if Kristen keeps doing her job really, really well, awesome.
Yeah.
But the business problem today may not be a marketing issue. It could be like a people and performance issue. We don't have enough to be able to handle that demand in the business because there's also a threshold of turnaround time and kind of your willingness within that, right? That number would be so valuable for you to have, and it will help inform what that next hire or potentially upgrade looks like. Maybe it's converting those contractors to W-2 so that we have a little bit more say in their schedule and all those other benefits that happen when you bring them on as employees. So I would do that math.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, real audit, Melissa, of how many boxes are you actually touching? Because we say we're not, but if things are backlogged and you're hopping in every week and kind of like essentially subbing in and you're only 3 days a week in the business, truly, then that's precious time. So we have to start to reframe where your time is best spent and your energy is diverted to make sure that it's really setting it up for success. Because these things will still exist in the warehouse if you don't address them now.
Yeah.
And so why not do it now when it's cheaper and you don't have the cost of rent? You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
One of our USPs is that people can buy a card and then we actually handwrite the card. So again, that takes a lot of time. Some people come in with novels over here, like, and it takes a long time because the person actually writes out each message. So another thing that, adds to the club.
That awareness of how long it takes, or maybe, and then on the back end, maybe it's as simple as like having a max number of characters that could be in that box or something like that. There's some like system solutions that we could create to help decrease that if it's a huge time suck. If it's like 1 in every 20, do we need to change a process for it? But I think where both of you are at and where the business is at, I think it's let's deep dive inside of the business and see like what could be cleaned up, optimized, and just give us some more data to then help support the next. Because I think the next move is then what's the cost of warehouse? What's the cost of Melissa going full time? And what's the cost of Kristen coming back over to the state side? Also, it sounds like we just need to have a chat about that in general. But like, what does that look like, right? So then that way we know what's next. Because with the warehouse, that is a instant increase in cost, which means marketing has to be at a point consistently where it's bringing in that business, which also means in-house we have the people ready to go to handle that increased demand. So it's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. And I just want to make sure we have all the data we possibly can with the current business model to support those next moves. There's a lot going on, but in a great way. And I think if nothing else, I hope you guys take away and listeners do take away that look in-house, look at how long things are taking you, and then assign a dollar amount. It's great because you have a contract, you pay them X amount an hour, you do that math. Okay, this is literally how much it's costing. And maybe you'll find you have someone who's 2 times more efficient than the other person. And it could be, what are you doing differently? It could be maybe that person handles more of that and this person gets recalibrated to a different role. So I really think a time audit for them is going to be
Yeah.
your best friend.
Totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
So thank you so much for coming and sitting in the hot seat. I love what you guys are doing. I love the intention and heart behind it. And I'm just excited to see where the business goes next. So for those who are listening and want to, I'm sorry, Kristen, my people are Instagram people, but their Instagram is really cool. I've been snooping. I think it's a good time, but where can people go to connect with both of you and learn more about the business? And if they're in a situation where maybe they need your services, definitely have them reach out. So where's the best place to direct them?
You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at goodbrief.shop. I can't promise you that we have posted anything recently. So we jumped on that AI doll bandwagon. So there's that little nugget there if you want to go check it out. Or you can visit us on our website, and that is shopgoodbrief.com.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for coming on the show. I just wish you all the best and definitely stay connected. Thanks for being a part of the Get Shit Done Rebelution. My hope is this episode sparked a fire in you, equipped you with some practical next steps, or inspired you to take action towards your goals. If it did, please help spread the word by sharing this episode or leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in. Now it's time for me to hand over the keys and let you get shit done.